Welcome to Seeking the Lost with Earl Barnett. This program is sponsored by some area churches of Christ and is dedicated to spreading the everlasting gospel as revealed in the Holy Scriptures. The churches of Christ accept the Scriptures as totally inspired of God and the all-sufficient guide for faith and practice. Therefore, they reject all doctrines of men and rely totally on the Bible to direct their course in serving God. It is our pledge to you that each lesson will be the truth as revealed in His holy word. Mr. Barnett carefully prepares the graphics so you can clearly see the book, chapter, and verse of each lesson taught. We urge you to either copy the scriptures used or record this program for further study. If you have any questions or comments, or if you need prayer, the Seeking the Lost ministry can be reached toll-free at 1-800-390-7734. It is our prayer that Seeking the Lost will be an important source of information about God's Word and will help you more perfectly worship Him. And now, here is Mr. Barnett.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in to the Seeking the Lost broadcast. I want to talk to you about the thunderous sound of silence. That's somewhat of a strange title, but I think that as we go along, you'll understand what it is. Actually, I need to say this first. This is somewhat of a disclaimer. This broadcast is presented in the spirit of love and is no way an attempt to cast a shadow on loyal American Muslim citizens, but to sound the alarm of the dangers of our present world. As always, the churches of Christ salute you. You'll understand that disclaimer as we go along, and so this is not to be taken in any way as an attack on our American Muslim citizens. But this is just a look across the world, and this was inspired by an article that was written by Kristen Powers, and you can see that it's of recent date. But Kristen Powers is a communist for. She is also a contributor to USA Today. She is also a Fox News political analyst. And the title of her article was "A Global Slaughter of Christians, but America Churches Stay Silent." And therefore you have the title, "The Thunderous Sound of Silence." We're going to review her article, and it's quite lengthy, but I think that we can get through it without it becoming boring to you. Christians are being singled out and massacred from Pakistan to Syria to the Nairobi shopping unit. Christians in the Middle East and Africa are being slaughtered, tortured, raped, kidnapped, beheaded, and forced to flee the birthplace of Christianity. One would think that this horror might be consuming the pulpits and the pews of the American churches. Not so. The silence has been nearly deafening. And you can see, therefore, why that it would inspire me to say the thunderous sounds of silence is what we're going to talk about today. We're going to review her article and bring out some things that I believe that is important for us in the United States. She continues in saying, in Syria, Christians are under attack by Islamic rebels and fear extinction. If Bashar al-Assad falls, this month, rebels overran the historic Christian town of Mayala, where many of the inhabitants speak Aramaic, and that's the language of Jesus Christ. The AFP reported that a resident, just to show you how radical that it is, that this woman decided that she, knowing the turmoil that was going on, decided that she would check on her fiancé, so she dialed his cell phone, and a member of the Free Syrian Army answered the phone and said, "We gave him a chance to convert to Islam, and he refused, so we slit his throat." Is that happening in the world today, in what we call the civilized world? It certainly is. Look at this. On Sunday, that's September the 22nd, Taliban suicide bombers killed at least 85 worshipers at an All Saints church, which has stood since 1883 in the city of Peshawar, Pakistan. Somebody said, "Well, you know, they're not the kind of Christians, they don't practice a brand of Christianity that we do. It doesn't matter here. What they're doing, they're wearing the name of Christian. And because they're wearing the name of Christian, they are brought under fire. They are targeted." What about it? How many times did you hear this in the pulpits and the pews? That 85 worshipers at the All Saints Church had been killed. How many people raised a voice that we hear from our government on that situation? Christians were also the target of the Islamic fanatics in the attack on the shopping center in Nairobi, Kenya. This is September the 22nd. It's very recent. Killed more than 70 people. 70 people killed on that attack. Associated Press reported that the Somali Islamic militant group of Al-Shabaab separated Muslims from other people, let the Muslims go free. Now here is something you want to think about. The captive were asked questions about Islam. If they couldn't answer, they were shot. How many were shot? Well, 70 people died in there. Did that happen in a civilized world today? Yes, it did. Should we be alarmed? Where is the alarm? Where is the outrage? I don't ask you that. She continues and talk about Nina Shia, an international human rights lawyer, an expert on religious persecution. This is a testimony from 2011 before Congress regarding the Iraqi Christians, 2/3 of whom have vanished from the country. What happened to them? Well, they were either murdered or fled in fear of their lives. She also testified that in August 2004, 5 churches were bombed in Baghdad and Mosul. In a single day in July 2009, 7 churches were bombed in Baghdad. Did you hear about that from your pews, from your pulpit? Did your minister, anybody mention that? Was eyebrows raised? Was anybody saying, you know, this is wrong, because those people were calling themselves Christians and yet they were under deadly attack? The Archbishop of Mosul was kidnapped and killed in early 2008. You know, that's not long ago. A bus convoy of Christian students were violently assaulted. Christians have been raped, tortured, kidnapped, beheaded, and evicted from their homes. Where is the outcry? Where is the outcry? This is what we're trying to get people to see today. Where is the outcry? You'd say, well, that's happening way over yonder, and we're not really concerned with that day-by-day happenings in another world. You better be careful about that. Leo Gilbert is the author of Saturday People, Sunday People. Somebody said that is a very strange title for any book. But you know, the Saturday People and the Sunday People, it comes from an Islamic slogan which reads, first the Saturday people, then the Sunday people, which means first we kill the Jews, you know, the Sabbath people, the Saturday people, and then we kill the Christians. She wrote recently that her Jewish friends and neighbors in Israel are shocked but not entirely surprised by the attacks on Christians in the Middle East. They are rather puzzled, however, by what appears to be the lack of anxiety, action, or advocacy on the part of Western Christians. Are we that silent? Are we that silent that people in the other world look and say, well, you know, those American Christians, they're not at least concerned about all of these things that are going on? They're not at all concerned about what is happening in another world to people who call themselves Christians. In January, all is not lost. Representative Frank Wolf penned a letter to 300 Catholic and Protestant leaders. He was asking, can you, as a leader in the church, help? Can you help? Down here it says there have been far too many takers. What was he asking? He was saying, are you not pained by the accounts of persecution? Will you use your sphere of influence to raise the profile of this issue, be it through a sermon, writing, or media interview? There have been far too few takers. Representative Wood and Representative Anna Eschol sponsored a legislation last year to create a special envoy at the State Department to advocate for religious minorities in the Middle East and South Central Asia. That's good, isn't it? That would help tremendously. Listen here, it passed the House overwhelmingly, but died in the Senate. So there's no check on this, at least from the State Department. Wednesday, October 23rd, Christians in Egypt are unprotected and easy targets as the country remains in conflict amid its efforts to move toward democracy after the overthrow of President Mohamed Morsi says Senator Bob Corker. Corker has joined with fellow Republican Senator Lamar Alexander of Tennessee and Roy Blunt of Missouri to ask President Barack Obama to provide security to Christians in Egypt and elsewhere in the Middle East. Let's hope that that happens, because these people are in danger. Fox News report there are an estimated 8 to 9 million Copts living in Egypt. In the past 4 days, there have been attacks against 38 churches, 58 Coptic-owned houses, and 85 businesses. These are Christians. They call themselves Christians, and they are under constant attack and threat. What about that? What about the thundering sound of silence? Have you heard about this from your pulpit? A global slaughter of Christians, but American churches stay silent. Our thanks to Christian powers for awakening us to this clear and present danger. And somebody said, well, that's way across. That's across in a place that, has never known anything about democracy, has never known anything about freedom of religion. Oh, they have. And yet, at the same time, we find it is convenient for us just to be quiet, not to say anything about it. Somebody said, that doesn't happen in the United States. I beg to differ, because I'm going to present to you some disturbing trends that are in the United States. A lot of people scoff when they say that there is a war on religion. They say, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. That there is no such thing as a war on religion in the United States of America. Well, let's think about that for a little while. What if I told you a Florida minister, having provided food for the hungry for 31 years, was told it would not be allowed to receive the USDA food unless they removed portraits of Jesus, the 10 Commandments, and a banner that read Jesus is Lord, and absolutely stopped giving Bibles to the needy. 31 years they have been using government surplus foods. We used to call them commodities. They've been using these commodities to feed the poor. At the same time, when they came in to collect those commodities, the poor would see a banner saying Jesus is Lord. They would see the 10 Commandments. And not only that, they would be given a Bible. They said, you got to quit that. No longer can you receive these government foods unless you remove all of that. What's going on here? What if I told you that California Christians were taken to court by reading the Bible outside the Department of Motor Vehicles in California? They read aloud so others could hear. It was a lunch break. They would go outside and they would read the Bible, not shouting, hooping, and hollering, but just reading the Bible aloud. And anyone that wanted to, was in earshot, could stop and listen to the Bible being read. Well, that didn't take long. They were taken to court, told to stop. What about this? The owners of a Colorado bakery could face a year in prison. Why? What is their mistake? What is their sin? Refusing to make a cake for a gay wedding. Well, they wouldn't do it. When they got that order, they wouldn't do it because they didn't believe in what is referred to as same-sex marriages. There's no such thing as a same-sex marriage. There's a same-sex union that is recognized by law, but there's no such thing as a marriage. A marriage, according to what the Scriptures say and according to the traditional understanding, is a union between a man and a woman. But they wouldn't bake that cake. They could face prison time. Here's another case. After refusing to make a wedding cake for a lesbian ceremony, Aaron and Melissa Klein, owners of what's called the Sweet Cakes by Melissa in Gresham, Oregon, said that they had been targeted with what their attorney called economic terrorism, threats of physical violence, including rape. That's all been reported. What do you think about that? Is there danger here in the United States of America? You know that there is. And we've got to confront it. We've got to be aware of it. And we've got to do something about it. Well, what if I told you that an activist judge ordered a homeschool mom in New Hampshire to stop homeschooling her daughter? Why? Everybody has a right to do that, don't they? Well, she was told to stop because the little girl reflected too strongly her mother's Christian faith. Does a federal judge have that authority? Well, they took it. What are we talking about? We're talking about some disturbing trends in the United States of America. As we look across the world at the murders, at the beheadings, at the rapes, we're looking here in the United States and we see the seeds being planted. Police called to East Jasmine Middle School in Lexington, Kentucky, to stop 8th graders from praying during their lunch break for a student whose mother was tragically killed. That caused quite an uproar. We find that the police got there. They finally, after much talk about it, I think they were allowed to come on, but they threatened to arrest them because they were praying. You know, I served as a principal for many, many years, and if I caught my students praying, I know what I would have done. I would have knelt down and prayed with them. But, you know, you can't do that. You're going to get a lawsuit. You're going to get in trouble if you do that. Well, just think of what's going on in the United States. Do you think there's not a war, that there's not a smoking gun here about the attitude of the government toward religion? HBO's program, Curb Your Enthusiasm, never seen this, aired an episode where the main actor urinates on a painting of Jesus. I'd like to see him go to a Muslim country and urinate on a painting of Muhammad. When confronted, HBO would not apologize. And to add to that slur against Christianity, it went on to depict a person coming in that believed in God and saw the moisture on the portrait of Jesus and declared that Jesus is weeping. You know, that is a slam. That is a disgrace. But what do you think? A lawsuit was filed by the Freedom From Religion Foundation. I underlined that right there. I want you to look at it. Freedom From Religion Foundation, seeking to stop Congress from displaying the national motto and Pledge of Allegiance at the Visitor Center in Washington, D.C. Does Congress still open each session with prayer? I'm sure they do. What about that? Is that unconstitutional? Just think about it. What's going on in this world today? Children can't pray in school. As far as I know, Congress still opens each session with prayer. You know, it's so inconsistent. And sometimes people just make choices and they make rulings that I don't understand. I just don't. Some disturbing trends in the United States. During the summer of 2011, dozens of churches across the United States decided to read portions of the Quran during church services as part of an initiative of the Interfaith Alliance. On that Sunday, I wonder how many Bibles were read in the mosques across America. You know, sometimes you just wonder what's going on in the minds of people. U.S. Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee declared at a congressional hearing on Muslim radicalization in the United States that investigators need to analyze Christian militants. Who are they? Who are the Christian militants? Who are the people that have burned down buildings? Who are the people that are beheading folks in the United States? In America, because they too might try to bring down the country. That is a U.S. congressman saying you need to investigate Christians as well. What's happening here in the United States? It's not good. The clouds are gathering and it don't look good. A federal judge who threatened to incarcerate a high school valedictorian unless she removed all references to Jesus from her graduation speech, and who decided that prayer before a state House of Representatives couldn't be to Jesus. Well, who are you going to pray to? Who are you going to pray to? There are public officials who prohibit students from handing out gifts containing religious messages, and who stopped another student from handing out flyers inviting classmates to a church event. Thought I had enough gumption, enough drive, enough dedication. He wanted his fellow students to have an opportunity to attend services at his church, and so he was handing out flowers. You can't do that. Cannot do that. Why not? We here in the United States of America, why can't we do it? Well, you can see these are disturbing trends in the United States. Under directives from the government, Veteran Affairs banned pastors from using the words God or Jesus at military burial services in Texas. So I said, that didn't happen. It did happen. Representative John Culberson has called for a congressional investigation. He went undercover and discovered that these directives have been put in place. What? That's happening where? It's not happening over in the Middle East. Where's it happening? Texas, in the United States of America. Some disturbing trends. Many chaplains have been advised not to use the name of Jesus when praying in public. The difference is here, that as long as they're in church services within their church or confines of that building, that they can pray in the name of Jesus. To get out in public, they can't do it. Why? What might offend somebody? My. You know, this business of saying something and meaning something else, this political correctness stuff, you know, it's just about ruined everything because everybody's so sensitive that, you know, you're afraid to say anything because it's not politically correct. Well, that is infringing upon free speech, I can tell you that. Not hateful language that would hurt people's feelings. Everybody knows what that is. But when a person can't express what he really feels without being charged as being a racist or being insensitive, there's something wrong. There's something really wrong. And I think that the people of the United States are getting fed up to about right here with this political correctness stuff. Others have been disciplined for not conforming to what appears to be an agenda of religious political correctness. What do you think? What if I told you the family of a Colorado preacher's wife is still fuming after the director of a city-owned cemetery refused to engrave her final resting place with the name Jesus because it might offend people? What in the name of high heaven are we dealing with here? I understand that it was a picture of a fish. You know, you've seen those. And she wanted Jesus inscribed within that. And they said, we can't do it. Now, city-owned, you know, public cemetery, we can't do that. At first they told us it wouldn't fit. Well, you can make anything fit with, you know, a font smaller or larger. But after we kept pushing them, the cemetery director told us that it might offend somebody, and they weren't going to allow it. What is going on in the United States of America? What is going on? We look across the world and we're horrified at the persecution of those who call themselves Christians. We call ourselves Christians. And we see the seeds being planted right here in the United States. Here's something that will make your blood boil if you haven't heard about it. It was 1987. A photographer depicting a small plastic crucifix submerged in a glass of the artist's own urine. What did he do? Well, he was in this contest here, and this contest was awards in the visual arts. It was a competition, and what he did, he really got something shocking. He took a plastic cross, turned it upside down in a glass, urinated in it, took a picture of it, and he was a winner. He was a winner. What do you think about that? You talk about some disturbing trends in the United States. It was sponsored by the National Endowment for the Arts. Well, why is that disturbing? Because you paid for it. A United States agency that offers support and funding for artistic projects, and you foot the bill. What do you think about that? Here's something that is very current. The Air Force Academy is considering dropping the phrase, "So help me God," from its honor oath after the Military Religious Freedom Foundation filed a complaint. They saw it printed on a poster somewhere. And they said, that's unconstitutional. We're not going to have it. The current version of the Cattleman's Oath reads, "We will not lie, steal, or cheat, nor tolerate among us anyone who does." In other words, if they find some of their fellow cadets cheating, they turn them in. Furthermore, I resolve to do my duty and live honorably, so help me God. Oh, sounds to me like I hear that when the president takes the oath of office, don't I? Well, that'll probably be next. But to update on that, the Academy has now made "So Help Me God" optional. So Help Me God optional. I want you to just watch and see how long it takes for when the President of the United States takes the oath of office, "So Help Me God" is removed. You think that's going to happen? Wait and see. Disturbing trends that are in the United States of America. Someone has aptly wrote that the strategies and tactics of the secular elitists behind these attacks on religion include this: efforts to remove Christian symbols from the public places, denying citizens the right to mention the name of Jesus in public, causing Christian teachers and school principals to deny their own basic religious freedoms for fear of lawsuits, and even the oft-repeated words of our own president that America is, whatever we once were, we're no longer a Christian nation. Do you take issue with that statement? I certainly do. When 80%, polls show that more than 80%, 80 to 85% still believe in God, still believe in the Bible. Our duty as an American, we have a duty. We are to pray for kings and all in authority. You ever pray for the president? I do. You ever pray for Congress? I do. Do you ever pray for the governor and for the legislators, even down to the counselors in your city hall? We're to pray for them, that we may lead a quiet and a peaceable life. Carrying on. If we sit by and let our freedom be taken from us, it'll be our own fault. You know, God is still in charge, as he showed Nebuchadnezzar in the long, long ago, that the Most High rules in the kingdom of men and gives it to whomsoever he will. We keep insulting God. What do you think he's going to do with it? Here are two statements I want you to remember. The wicked shall be turned into hell, and all the nations that forget God. And blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord. I want you to think about these things. This is Earl Barnett saying, you have a great day.
Our God is an awesome God.
You have been watching Seeking the Lost with Earl Barnett. If you need prayer or have comments or questions, feel free to call the Seeking the Lost Ministry at 1-800-390-7734. That's toll free, 1-800-390-7734. Seeking the Lost is sponsored each week by some area churches of Christ. Until next time, may the good Lord bless you and keep you.